Good evening, everyone. Happy to see your faces. Howie G, thank you for co-hosting tonight. Thank all of you for being here and supporting each other, giving me the opportunity to share my love of the Dharma, just whatever that joy that comes from reminding myself, reminding you of the good news in this world of bad news, and the opportunity to make our weekly peace offering, to step out of the stream of distress and just that may just mean facing the distress that we experience and recognizing it as just a wave of emotion or thoughts arising, vanishing, be able to relate to our experience in a way that we're not so defined by it, and not so absorbed in it, not so reactive. So we're very lucky to have, as the Buddha put it, something like it's very rare, 1 in 100,000 people can ever hear the teachings that point us back to our natural state of openness prior to any identity, any view of self. There is that in us which is unconditioned, unborn, unshakable. It's good news. I forgot what I was about to say, but I got taken with the sense of just being open. But we have an opportunity here to just nurture that in us which is already whole, and then to meet all those parts of ourselves that seem so unhappy. Meet them with compassion, kindness. And as always, the best way that I know of to meet ourselves with clarity and kindness is to have our attention in the same place as our body, to let our body and mind come into harmony. So we close our eyes, we let ourselves be called here by the sound of the gong. Being drawn to real time by the sound of the gong, we let our eyes close softly. Begin to enter into the dark, the beautiful, secluded womb of awareness. As we experience a feeling of our body from the inside. The Buddha used the equivalent word of this turn inward. He called it seclusion. Secluded in the body. And in that simple turning, with the eyes closed, we move very gracefully from the idea of our body to the immediate and direct experience of sensation. Feeling the tingling, the aliveness, almost visually like little points of sensation or stars flickering in an evening sky. Vibration, pulsing, form and shape. Then we move gently through a more conventional sense of the touch of our eyes, the touch of our lips, feeling those sensations so intimately that the ideas give way to the sensations. Touch of the hands, touch of the rear. So intimate that the idea of hands melts away and the idea of rear end melts away, and there's just that elemental experience. And as our attention fills our body, and our body fills our attention, without getting involved in the peace and quiet project, our body quiets and our mind settles, just as a byproduct of harmonizing our mind and body. Something in us lets go of the imagined past, imagined future, and even the imagined present. It just feels life right where it connects with us. And that stillness of body that comes naturally quiets the mind, the thinking mind. It's as though the thinking mind is absorbed in the feeling of the sitting body. We naturally notice and hopefully enjoy the sensations that come when our body breathes, those waves of rising and falling, expanding and contracting. Waves of temperature and tingling as the air passes our nostrils, wherever it is that the felt experience of the breath is noticed. We let each breath guide us naturally to a more calm abiding, making no attempt to calm anything, letting the calm abiding be the byproduct of our continuity of attention, and our mind and body being in the same location. Just this moment, just this sitting body, just this breath. Whatever experience you're having right now is the right experience. Why? Because you're noticing it. And if you're noticing it, you are cultivating a non-reactive mind. Mindfulness just notices. It has no other agenda. And the way, as Cohn says, the way goes nowhere. This is the way, just being aware here feeling our body, feeling our breath, and then feeling and welcoming other experiences that may from time to time become stronger than the breath and body. Sounds, moods, thoughts and images, welcoming each presently arising experience and experience its changing nature, its dream-like nature. And in this way, we realize the Dharma. And as we realize the Dharma, something in us lets go. Nothing whatsoever to cling to as I or mine. Just let go, let be, as is. Aware, supported by the body and breath. Just this moment. Even though most of you will have unbroken mindfulness, never letting the mind leave the body, even though that may be true from time to time, thoughts may arise and mindfulness may not rise up to notice them. And those thoughts may spread out into a chain of daydreaming. You may not notice that that's happened for a while, and that at some point mindfulness rearises. You'll realize, oh, I'm here, aware again. So rather than judge that time when mindfulness just did not happen to arise, rather than judge any of the thinking, we just appreciate that moment of coming back to our senses, awake, aware, embodied, and in support of remaining anchored, sustained, this harmony of mind and body, we come back to our breath. We appreciate the fact that we are aware and know that our body will help support our awareness since our body is here. Just this moment, just this breath. Sinking into the experience of the body breathing, sticking to it, spreading out all around it, not missing any part of the experience of breathing in and breathing out. And even sustaining awareness through the space between the breaths, if there is one. Just this moment. Just this breath. Just being aware. Is there awareness right now? What is being known, or what are you aware of? And what's the state of mind that's being aware? What's the quality of the mind? Is there strain to make something happen? Is this greed in the mind? Is there resistance or aversion to what's happening? This is aversion in the mind. Just know awareness, what you're aware of, and notice the state of the mind that's noticing. Just this moment, just being aware, supported by the body and breath. What a pleasure to practice with all of you. Got so excited when we began tonight that I forgot for us to do a little meet and greet. So I'd like to invite everyone before we move on to feel free to, if you're so inclined, to unmute and say good evening to each other. Say where you're calling in from if you like. Little Sangha building.
I'm Nancy from Nevada.
Hey, Nancy. Glad you're here.
Big love from Nashville.
Hey, Jerry.
Sabina and SF.
Nina and SF.
Sabina.
Sabina. Oh, there you are, Sabina. Got it. Good to see you.
In Santa Barbara.
Hey, Mary.
You look like you feel better, Howie. You feel better?
A little bit. It's 3 Tuesdays in a row with the schmutz.
I'm sorry.
I've got a lingering whatever it is. But
You look like you feel better, though.
yeah, I think I'm on my way back. But anyway, thanks
I hope
for
so.
noticing and asking.
Sue, New Jersey.
Hey, Sue.
Jersey.
Welcome.
Hey, New Jersey.
Charlie in Rockport, Maine.
Hey, Charlie.
Katie
Hi,
from
from
San
Maryland.
Francisco.
Hey, Laura from Maryland, and Katie in San Francisco.
Margot from Berkeley.
Hey, Margot. Always great to have you with us.
Karen in Vancouver.
Hey, Karen.
Brenda from Sunshine Coast, British Columbia.
Where is Sunshine Coast?
Look,
Where are you?
North
Here.
of Vancouver. Yeah.
Oh, there you are, Brenda. I see you now.
Michael.
Hi, it's Ken from Edmonton.
Hey, Ken. Welcome.
And Michael from Edmonton.
Hey, Michael. Wow. We got the Canucks tonight.
And Bev from Thailand, but I'm a Canuck too.
Oh, Bev, what time of the day in Thailand?
Oh, it is 11:45 tomorrow. So 15 hours ahead.
This is just wild. It's wild.
John, Texas.
Mark from San Francisco.
Mark.
Good to see all of you, and I'm glad you all can see me.
I love your lighting, Mark. It's mood lighting.
Joanne in Tucson.
Hey, Joanne. So great to see you.
How are you?
I'm
I'm
okay.
Tucson.
Oh, there's another Tucson. Where's the other Tucson?
Nancy, I live in the Bay Area now, but I grew up in Tucson.
Oh, you grew. Oh, right. Great. So that reminds me. Hey, Keith, welcome. Just reminds me, I'm on the first weekend of March. I'm in the Phoenix area. Scottsdale Insight is hosting me for a retreat. And then the following week, March 9th and 10th, I think, I'm in Austin, Texas. So Texans and Arizonans, please feel free to come. So, anyway, glad to see all of you. I am curious, even though it may feel like ancient history now, what you noticed in the sitting and anything that emerged as a question, comment, description, topic. I'd be open to hearing, and other people probably would too. So are there any questions, comments, descriptions, topics? And please use the raised hand function. Lisa, please.
Hi, Howie.
Thanks for breaking the ice.
Sure. Yeah, I often feel like, you talk about, sitting in the body, noticing the body, but today in my sitting and I've been having this a lot. I feel like I have a lot of stories about how my body is actually feeling. So it's hard for me to sit in the body because I have so many stories about how my body feels.
Right. Well, the beauty of what you're saying is at least you know the difference between the immediate felt sense of the body and the story about it. And it's often in the story where most of the stress, most of the suffering, or at least the reactivity. Now, the feeling of the body certainly can be really unpleasant at times, but it's often the story, the diagnosis, the anticipation of what will happen, all of that tends to add more stress. So the good news is that we can notice that. And that's, in a way, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. Is actually just seeing that the way it is. This is a story of the body. This is not the body.
Mm-hmm.
Great insight.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem to solve either.
Right.
So thank you. And there is a certain method too. There's a recommendation that when we notice that a thought of something is not that thing, that we don't, it's not an invitation to keep thinking about it, to keep extending our thoughts about it, because we can easily just become incarnated literally in a story and then not actually see it for what it is. And so that's, but it is, so that moment of noticing a story is a story. It's great. Nina, please feel free.
Hi, Howie. Thank you so much, as always. Grateful to be here. And this isn't about this sit specifically. This is something that came up for me over the weekend. And you were the first person I heard describe this, but I wasn't really paying attention because I had never experienced it and it didn't apply to me. But now that I have, I was wondering what your specific tips are, which was on Sunday, I participated in a hybrid day long and I experienced the phenomenon of Vipassana romance and wondering your advice.
Well, I'm saying this all for you and for others as well. But generally, of course, when the Vipassana romance starts, there's a sequence that it's triggered by, some kind of pleasant, what we call pleasant Vedana, the feeling tone, and it produces a little charge of liking, and then the tension builds, and then our mind just starts proliferating and projecting on that person. Following liking comes wanting, and wanting just creates a big compulsion to think and to fantasize. And so all of that tends to have the effect of having us, not unlike the person before, completely get lost in the story of the person, not the person, that get lost in that particular dreamscape, and most often lose contact with the felt experience of wanting, the felt experience of staying embodied and balanced. So we tend to become disembodied. So in general, we know that this wanting mind is just part of our mind stream. We're all maybe more conditioned to want than we are to just be at peace, just to be relaxed. So we can put it to good use, though. We can notice that this story has emerged, and we can feel we can accept the fact that that story is, or that person is there, but we want to expand beyond that person and that story to feel what's happening in our body. So that one, we get our seat, and two, feel what often is the pain of wanting, the feeling of dissatisfaction, the feeling of unhappiness, the feeling of suspended relief that goes against the view that being in a state of longing for the beloved is pleasant. Because the surface, it's associated with all the fantasy, but we often don't catch that the underlying feeling is one of some degree of distress. and essentially a more subtle story that's saying, I can't be happy unless I satisfy that desire. So the opportunity to re-inhabit the body, to notice that feeling of desire, to see that desire, when met with attention, it comes and it goes. And it's only because if we're feeding the fantasy in a disembodied way that it just keeps going, and then we keep feeling increasingly more dissatisfied. So just find your body and enjoy the fact, just as I was saying before, enjoy the fact that you're noticing this wild proliferation of thoughts. And even you can even enjoy the pleasure of it, the pleasure of the fantasy itself, but with your body, and just as equally aware of the underlying tension.
Thank you, Howie.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Were you strategizing how you could find that person and make sure you show up on another retreat with them? And
Thankfully, I wasn't, but I did discuss this with my mom. I had to like describe this person to my mom and describe how I was feeling. So the proliferation continued beyond the container of the retreat.
you were still working it, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it feel now?
I'm still kind of thinking about it, but better in the sense of more awareness brought to it, more lucidity around what it actually is and the nature of it.
Yeah.
More of the relating from less of the relating from it, more to it,
Right.
as you talk about, and hearing everything you said is very helpful too, as always.
Yeah. So the true longing, is for whatever that is that gets awakened. And that isn't the other person. They may be a trigger, but it's really the awakening, and the awakening of that sense of whatever that is, that love, that deep connection that it somehow reminds us that we're longing for. But it's really, if it's we turn the other way, we go to the source of the longing, which is really our own deeper nature, that basic openness that I started with this evening. So good luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Hard to top a Vipassana romance. I know that's not a comparison, though, please. Just feel free. Even if it was a Vipassana vendetta that you had, that's the same answer. Okay, it was so synchronistic in a way that the two people who commented, sorry, my heater's making a lot of noise tonight, but the two people who commented talked about stories, talked about the proliferation of fantasy or thought. And that reminds me of the quote that Mary included in this evening's bulletin, which I have a simpler version of it that I actually thought that I would riff on a little bit tonight, since I was a little under the weather and had some thoughts about it, and thought it might be fun actually to see what emerged from this quote, because there's so much Dharma in it. And just the shorthand version, which I will share, it's a little different than the one she did, from Bhante Gunaratna, who says, somewhere in the process of meditation, you will come face to face with the sudden realization that you are completely crazy. Your mind is a shrieking madhouse on wheels barreling down the hill, utterly out of control and hopeless. No problem. You are not any crazier than you were yesterday. It's always been this way, and you never noticed. So I've often found that to be both humorous and relieving and forgiving. And that's in some ways what I wanted to talk about tonight. And I often couple that quote when I share it with a quote from Francois Fenelon, who lived from 1651 to 1715. He said, as light increases, which is a way what Bhante Gunaratna is saying, when you're more aware, as light increases, we see ourselves to be worse than we thought. We are amazed at our former blindness as we see issuing forth from the depths of our heart a whole swarm of shameful and pleasurable feelings. I'm adding that. Like filthy reptiles crawling from a hidden cave. We never could have believed that we had harbored such things, and we stand aghast as we watch them gradually appear. But we must neither be amazed nor disheartened. We are not worse than we were. On the contrary, we are better. But while our faults diminish, the light by which we see them waxes brighter, and we are filled with horror. Bear in mind for your comfort that we only perceive our malady when the cure begins. So what is the cure when we see the malady, well, in this case, the malady of all these terrible thoughts that we can have, but also when we see the malady of this mind that proliferates, that spins in fantasies and in aversive fantasies and pleasurable fantasies and revenge fantasies, in inflated versions of ourselves, and in the conversations I've had this week with some other people, some profoundly deflating experiences of ourselves that coming from frequent and obsessive negative self-talk and self-judgment. So where is the healing in that? And the first, obviously, is to be able to identify, as Nina was saying, to be able to, instead of being just carried along by that, what I call the stream of distress, to be able to actually notice that it's happening. And then we have this opportunity. There is the opportunity in the light of awareness, as the light increases, to find the real healing, which may not sound so tender always, but the real healing is to not take it personally. And what does it mean, really? What do I mean by not taking it personally? And I guess maybe the place to start is, what does it mean to take it personally? This stream of thinking, this Vipassana romance, Vipassana vendetta, all the different many stories that we have about our body or about our life. What does it mean to take it personally? It means to say that thought of myself in that stream of thoughts is me, that those thoughts are me and they're mine, that reinforces a view that those thoughts refer back to some kind of entity, some kind of solid entity that is at the center of the universe, the center of life, that everything is referring back to. This is what's called identification. It's taking it personally. My thought, my body, my life, my memories, my plans. And you could call it a conventional view of self, is taking things personally. And it's in the beauty of the Dharma that even that which we conventionally see as mine, this body, this mind, thoughts, from a point of view of Dharma, from the point of view of the way it actually is, upon closer scrutiny, upon a closer perception that's based on a closer proximity of what's actually happening. The Dharma teaches us that that what we take to be self, what we take to be me, is none other than, at least the way the Buddha became quite liberated by it, is none other than these processes, these completely, utterly impersonal processes called skandhas or aggregates, that there is contact or materiality, there's feeling, there is perception, as I just spoke of a little bit, there's these mental formations as we talk about thoughts, and there's consciousness. And in that realm of the mental formations, what it's called the fourth skandha, the fourth aggregate, there is in these mental formations, there are mental formations that are called kusala or wholesome, and then there are those that are unwholesome. There are those that are deluded, in other words, and those that are wise and loving. And all those aggregates, those five, they're called the five heaps. There's these qualities: contact, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness, that are literally flashing on and off in each moment. Nowhere in that experience or in that reality of the five aggregates is there a self that can be found to whom everything is happening. And so that's the doorway. That was at least the Buddha's doorway into not taking things personally. And the reason I talk about perception is such an important element of what are called the five skandhas. The perception is an important element. It's because perception, depending on, and I know I've been talking about this a lot lately, somehow I think I have with Mission Dharma, but perception, depending on the proximity of observation, seems one way from a distance, and then a completely different upon closer scrutiny. The most obvious example being this body, which from a distance, from our more ordinary gross perception, seems like a solid entity, like a thing, like it has thingness. It has a sense of thingness apart from other bodies. And that we would never deny that kind of conventional reality. But if you put this body under a more careful scrutiny, which is what we do when we practice moment-to-moment attention to the body, is we see what seems solid, even from our own immediate and direct experience, is in a constant state of flux, constantly changing. There's not any element in this body that is ever stable, solid, continuous. But one should never adopt this as a belief. We have to see for ourselves. So that's why we practice in a very intimate way with this body, and it begins to break down the whole idea that this body is self. That's what I think I ended last week with Thich Nhat Hanh's quote, which is really just and in some ways it's a song of realization, where he said, "This body is not me. I am not caught in this body. I am life without boundaries. I've never been born and have never died. Since beginningless time, I've always been free." Because nowhere in that body can there be found, or nothing in that body can be said to be self, can said to be me or mine. It's just these conditions made up of earth, air, fire, water, elements. So even if you reflect on it, you see that this body is made up of all of these completely non-personal elements. And without all those causes and conditions, there would not even be even the conventional view of body. The body is, from just a wider view, is is not so separate an individual. It's made up of these non-personal elements: earth, air, fire, water. So that in terms of all this thinking mind, which is this what was it that he said? This mind is a shrieking madhouse on wheels, barreling down the hill, utterly out of control and hopeless. This shrieking madhouse it's a reminder. It normalizes the fact that completely unbidden, and in this way, completely selfless, it happens all by itself without any prompting. There's some kind of trigger and some kind of reaction, and then out of that comes a kind of compulsion to think. I'll just give you an example of someone shared with me earlier in the week. This person was invited to be a spokesperson for an organization that means a lot to them. And this role of spokesperson requires you have to be able to think on your feet and have just know your stuff. And that idea of being cast into that role of the spokesperson on the forward edge of what that person's expertise and comfort zone is, they went into a slight panic. I know no one here can relate to that. And of course, we know that people would, in some way, and this also included the possibility of being interviewed by the national television networks. And we all know that people would rather die than speak in public. That of the hierarchy of greatest fears, public speaking is number one. So nevertheless, it's understandable. Person's on the forward edge of what their comfort zone is, and it produced some fear. The fear body kicked in. Nothing could be more human, more unbidden, more impersonal than the fear body. It feels very personal, but it really is just one of those things that's built into the organism. It's built into our humanness. But once that fear body kicked in, there was a sense of shakiness. A person, for whatever reason, because of conditioning, past conditioning, that person wasn't able to just remember what's called in Pali or Sanskrit vijja. That's vijja is that ground of openness that we are, that unconditional, empty essence, a beautiful, free, natural state of mind. That person fell into not vijja, but what the Buddha called avidya, or ignorance, taking the reactive cycle of thoughts and feelings to be oneself. Avidya is the ignorance, taking that which is not self to be self. And before you know it, in that sequence of reactivity, fear, not liking, there was the shakiness, and then tension building, and then the mind starts in with what often comes when we feel diminished, the negative self-talk comes. And pretty soon that person was pretty absorbed in a very strong not enough view. Any of you ever had that? Not quite enough? So that sequence, completely without self, just condition of mind. And to be able to, so taking that personally means that you take that whole thing as real, as me, as mine. And then you ask the question, well, what does it mean to not take it personally? It means to see that for what it is. And of course, the only way to see that for what it is, to be able to relate to that experience instead of just be lost in it and it requires maybe the most wholesome mental factor in that part of the 5 aggregates called mental formations. The most wholesome mental factor is what? Mindfulness. Sati, clear comprehension. Sati sampajanya, clear comprehension. Now, mindfulness and clear comprehension, that's a condition of mind. There's the fact that, oh, there's awareness there now. That condition is also not self. That's not me. It's a changing condition. That sometimes there's that clear comprehension of what's happening. There's an ability to see it. Sometimes there's not. So not taking it personally is having the good fortune of seeing that mindfulness has rearisen. That's why I teased a little bit during the sitting tonight. I said, I know most of you are having seamless mindfulness, not wandering, not letting your mind leave your body at all. But perhaps in a moment, thoughts may come and mindfulness may not rise up to notice them. And those thoughts, unnoticed, spread out into ordinary thinking. And that's what's sometimes described as the chain of delusion. But mindfulness rearises. And at that moment, mindfulness rearises, it can be recognized that mindfulness was absent and mindfulness came back. Mindfulness absent is not myself. Mindfulness coming back is not myself. It's just a condition. So not taking it personally is seeing that everything that comes, the absence of mindfulness coming, that whole story of self as an inadequate being, not myself. It's a thought bubble. It's a thought world. That thought of myself is not myself. That thought of myself is just an imaginary version of me. And so not taking it personally is still being able to experience those same kinds of thoughts, but with the accompaniment of the wisdom and the mindfulness that says this is just another changing condition. This is just the thinking mind thinking. So that's why it's such a state of grace in a way to be able to see that this mind is a shrieking madhouse on wheels barreling down the hill, and not see it as a problem to be solved, but to see that it's always been this way. This is what minds do. And just realize that it wasn't up until that moment, it wasn't noticed. It wasn't noticed. And that's the key, is the noticing. And the beautiful thing about the condition of mindfulness, even though it's not personal, it can be cultivated, it can be nurtured. And the cause of that nurturing is not myself. Conventionally speaking, I said, I'll decide to be mindful and I'll practice and I'll go to many retreats and maybe someday I'll be more mindful. That's all conventional. It's a nice story. But really, the arising of that mindfulness, the energy to practice mindfulness, arises out of wisdom, out of the wisdom of seeing that an absent-mindedness is a fertile ground for a lot of stress, for a lot of case of mistaken identity. And the wisdom of seeing that even a few times becomes the cause of the desire, the wholesome desire, another one of the mental formations, the wholesome desire to want to be more continuously present. So we call that, I realized what a lost space cadet I am, and I really want to be a good meditator. So we have a whole personality story about it, but it's really just conditions. Not taking it personally is not making it a big deal when we get so lost. It just happens. And the mindfulness happens also, but it is aided, it's supported tremendously by keeping good company like we do on Tuesday nights and on retreats. It's supported tremendously by trying to spread out that intentionality to be aware into every corner of our life, from the moment we wake up in the morning until the time we go to bed. And one of the things that we continually talk about seems to support that likelihood that there will be more continuity of mindfulness is to have a very, very good relationship with our bodies. And that doesn't mean a good, of course, it's nice to have a good relationship with the idea of our body and our body image and story, but even more important is to have a good relationship with just the experience of our body, being able to increasingly accommodate pleasant feelings in the body and unpleasant feelings in the body, and use it as a primary anchor because it's always here. And it keeps calling us to the reality of the present moment, which is so utterly simple compared to the drama that plays in our mind and torments us. So recognizing our thoughts, not taking them personally, knowing what it means to take things personally, and knowing what it means to not take things personally, to see that none of it is self. And I think I've shared this recently also, the one of the most pith teachings of the Buddha was a line that's repeated over and over: is nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. Whoever has heard that teaching has heard the entire teaching. Whoever has practiced it has practiced the entire teaching. Whoever realizes the fruit of that understanding realizes the whole Dharma, realizes the whole teaching. Nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. So may we all see through the illusion of separate self and unfurl for each of us the deep implication of that, which is that none of us exist apart from each other, and that, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say, we inter-are with the cosmos, we inter-are with the sun, the moon, each other, and all the causes and conditions that brought us to be, and none of it is myself. Even though, from the conventional point of view, your crazy mind is a little different than my crazy mind, but we all have crazy minds, so enjoy it. Right. Thanks for listening. I think that there are some announcements, Howie. I know that there were some chats popping up as I was speaking.
Yeah. I got a couple of things to say. First, I just put something in the chat, which is that Howie's going to be having he's going to have an all-day in-person retreat. And later this month on the 24th, that's a Saturday from 9:30 to 4 p.m. And this has been a long time coming. Boy. So I've been to a few of the half-day ones, and this is, I think this is going to be not just quantitatively a lot more, but qualitatively too. So it's in San Francisco. So you guys up there in Alberta, you better,
fly in. No, don't fly in.
No, just
save a tree.
Get on your pony and ride. Okay, so anyway, it's here in the chat, and I included the way to register. I think I did, and it's also in the email that that we all got today from Mary. So take a look at that. That's a big deal. Another thing is, I just wanted to mention next week it's going to be David Lewis, who is a treat, going to be filling in Howie's seat. And lastly, if I have, I think the last and important thing to say is about Donna. Most of you folks have been here before, but you are requested, encouraged, you are thanked in advance for helping keeping this Sangha together by contributing financial support. You can find the email in the I think I just put it into the chat too. You can send PayPal, Venmo, checks, etc., etc. This is the only way this thing has been going, and it's been going successfully because of all of us. Donna is a blessing. It's a I would say it's a foundation. I would say, what do I know? It is said that it's a foundation of our practice, and it is much appreciated. So I think I got it all in there.
Thank
And
you, Howie.
thank you in advance.
Yes, thank you in advance, and also highly recommend that you support each other next Tuesday with David, and just keep the fire burning in your own practice, and as well sign up for the local San Francisco. We need to rally and come to our day-long retreats so that we keep having more and more in-person events. And the next month after that, I think we will do an online event for Points Beyond, but February will be the day long, and it's a great opportunity to practice together at Fort Mason with the seagulls and with each other, and really just marinate in the silence all day. It's a precious opportunity, so can't wait. And let's see if there's anything else. I think that's it. I think I'd like to end with, since I felt like I was captured by the joy of practice and being with you tonight, I thought that I would read a wonderful Mary Oliver poem entitled "Don't Hesitate." If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind. And much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back. That sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you noticed it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. May we all have a joyful week, joyful life, a peaceful life, and be the cause of peace and joy in the people who have to live around us. Anyway, thanks for your practice. Please feel free to unmute and say good night to each other. Anyway, lovely being with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers.
Good night.
Thank you, Howie.
Thank
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
That was
Night.
great. Good night, everyone.
Sweet dreams.
Bye-bye. Sweet dreams.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah, feel better. And that was one of my favorite poems. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Beautiful. Thank you.
See you soon.
Good
Cheers,
night,
everybody. Good night.
everyone.
Thanks, Howie.
As ever. Good. Safe travels, Howie, and feel
Thank
better.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.